Well, our first guest is about to have his life's work splashed across the big screen and will be portrayed by Bryan Cranston in a new movie, The Infiltrator.
Your boyfriend, Bryan Cranston, he is a former federal undercover agent who worked for the DEA, who helped bring down big banks and dozens of major drug cartels. Take a look at this.
I lived a double life for years. To my friends, I was Bob Mazur, a federal agent. To the underworld that dealt with me undercover, I was Bob Musella, a player in one of the most violent Colombian drug cartels on earth. I've committed more crime than many people sitting in prison for the rest of their lives. The good news is I was authorized to live that life of crime by the U.S. and several other governments.
Robert Mazur has had very specific threats to his life during his career. He is still an investigator, which is why we're protecting his identity.
He wrote the book, The Infiltrator, that the movie is based on, some of which will be filmed right here in Tampa Bay.
And Robert Mazur, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Okay, first of all, let's talk about the movie. Some of it's going to be filmed right here in Tampa Bay, as we mentioned. What do you think about Bryan Cranston, Mr. Breaking Bad, playing you?
I'm really excited about it. I've seen some of his work, and he's obviously one of the most talented actors that's out there. So it should be. I'm sure he's going to do a tremendous tribute to the story.
Let's talk about the work that you did to bring down some drug cartels from Colombia. How dangerous was that work, and how long did that take?
Well, yeah, anytime you're doing long-term undercover within a criminal organization, it's potentially very dangerous. It took quite a bit of time. There was about a year and a half of setup, and during that time frame, I got the opportunity to get embedded in real businesses, an investment company, mortgage brokerage business, jewelry chain with 70 locations on the East Coast, and even a brokerage firm with a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. So that took about 18 months. Then about 2+ years undercover, then another 2 years preparing for trials, and then another 2.5 years testifying around the world in trials.
And what was the result of all that hard work?
Virtually everyone was convicted in the case, not only the drug traffickers that we dealt with, but also the senior officials of what was the 7th largest privately held bank in the world, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. These are people who managed more than 500 branches around the world and were on their way to becoming one of the most powerful banks on the planet.
So all of this was really interconnected, the drug cartels, the banking, the terrorism. So how has it changed from the 80s when you were busting these people to today?
Well, it's kind of interesting. The Colombian cartels have, I'd say, changed their business plan. They now sell wholesale to the Mexican cartels, and the Mexican cartels work with gangs, Latin American gangs that are placed throughout North America for the distribution of their drugs. But in addition to that, they're also working, going from Venezuela to Africa as part of a route up into Europe. And they're working very closely with, unfortunately, terrorist organizations. Hezbollah has been very specifically identified in a number of cases, international cases, that have come out in the last 4 or 5 years as partners with the Mexican and the Colombian cartels.
We've heard about hundreds of thousands of people being murdered because of these cartels. How do you stop them? What can we do?
Well, I think part of what we do in law enforcement is very effective. We need to do more of it, and that is to identify or attempt to identify command and control and to attempt to prosecute and get them out, because the more you can destabilize the command and control, the weaker the organizations become. But I think we also need to face the fact that, unfortunately, the insatiable appetite for illegal drugs in this country and others is the gasoline that runs this engine, and we need to invest a heck of a lot more money in our kids, in education and treatment. That's really what I think could, in the future, over a longer period of time, truly make a difference.
But is the war on drugs a winnable war?
You know, we win battles here and there, but unfortunately, it generates $400 billion a year from the sale of illegal drugs. When you add that to other monies from illegal activity, it comes to $2.1 trillion. The United Nations on Drugs and Crime and other organizations have put reports out identifying that. That's a lot of money that gets a lot of good people to do a lot of bad things, and it's part of the reason why we repeatedly see a certain segment of the international banking community actively involved in soliciting deposits from this part of the world.
And we're seeing, as Cindy mentioned, you know, the horrific murders in Mexico primarily. Is that what we're just hearing about, or is this going on all over the world?
It's unfortunately going on in many more places other than just Mexico. In particular, Guatemala and Honduras are satellite nations, in part controlled by some of the Mexican cartels. There are segments of those countries that no law enforcement or military will enter. At least if they do, they won't exit alive. There is much more control and destabilization, and there's a tremendous amount of corruption of governments, of militaries, of police forces, of prosecutors in, unfortunately, Latin America. And we're beginning to see more corruption even on our side of the border, in our Customs and Border Patrol, where there's been a tremendous uptick in unfortunately, prosecutions of individuals who have helped the cartels.
You brought down one of the biggest cartels back in the 80s. You still have a fear, obviously, for your life. How do you live day to day with that fear? I mean, obviously we're protecting you, you're protected everywhere you go, but what is it like to walk in your shoes?
Well, you know, unfortunately, we didn't take the cartel down through my work. We certainly gave them a big bump in the road, but the fact of the matter is I dealt with people who killed people every day. I mean, I was in meetings when people spoke of killing the person who just walked out of the room 10 minutes before. And it's not so much that there is a specific reason other than the fact that, you know, that's the way those people live and work. And there's no need to go out of your way. This story really isn't about me. I was a vehicle through which this story is told. What really is the story here, in my view, is the bad guys and how they interface with the international banking community and how they get help from them. And in addition to that, I'm not by any means an individual hero. I was part of a team. I got to play quarterback, but like any team and any quarterback, without a really great line and offensive line and defensive line, you're not going to go anywhere. And so there was, luckily for me, a wave of very talented people around me that helped carry me through this thing. And although I think we did a tremendous job with what we had, unfortunately, things are pretty much the same as they were back then as they are today.
So the fight continues, and hopefully all these drug cartels are considered terror organizations, and then you might have more help from the military to take them out?
I believe that would be a good move. These are terrorist organizations. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And designating them as terrorist organizations and including some more use of military resources would probably, what I think, would be a very wise thing to do.
Well, Robert Mazur, thank you very much for sharing your story. The book is The Infiltrator. Are you going to be sitting down with Bryan Cranston to kind of let him pick your brain?
Yeah, that's on the agenda. It should be happening sometime in the not too distant future. We start shooting February 23rd in London.
All right, good stuff.
Very good, and a lot of it will be shot here in Tampa Bay as well. So maybe we'll be seeing you again with Mr. Cranston here.
It'd be my pleasure.
All right, thank you, Robert.
We'll be right back.